High Counselor Zixtal of the Galactic Council leaned forward in his crystalline throne, his luminescent appendages pulsing with concern as he addressed the Viraxian delegation. "You seek permission to establish first contact with the species known as humans," he stated, his translator converting his harmonic speech into standard galactic common. "Permission denied." Ambassador Kevorth of the Viraxian Empire bristled, his metallic scales reflecting the chamber's ambient light. "With all due respect, High Counselor, the Viraxian Empire doesn't seek permission. We're merely informing you of our intentions as a courtesy." The chamber fell silent. The other council members exchanged knowing glances, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying emotions ranging from pity to resignation. "You don't understand," Zixtal continued, his voice carrying the weight of millennia of accumulated wisdom. "This isn't about protocol or jurisdiction. This is about survival. Humanity isn't like the other species you've encountered." Kevorth's facial plates shifted into what passed for a smile among his kind. "We've reviewed their transmission data. A Level 3 civilization barely capable of reaching their own satellite. They still burn fossil fuels, wage wars among themselves, and their most advanced AI systems are primitive by our standards." An elder council member named Ixel, whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations, spoke up. "That's exactly what the Drachnid Imperium fought 3 centuries ago. They're extinct now." "A coincidence," Kevorth dismissed. "The Marax Collective drew the same conclusion 2 centuries ago," another counselor added. "Their entire collective consciousness now occupies a single moon, reduced to studying philosophy and creating art. They never speak of what happened. All these so-called warnings, yet no explicit explanation of what makes humans so dangerous," Kevorth challenged. "If they're truly such a threat, why haven't they conquered the galaxy?" Zixtal's bioluminescence darkened. "Because they haven't wanted to. Yet." The Viraxian ambassador's patience wore thin. "Enough mysticism. The Empire has decided. We'll establish contact, demonstrate our superior technology, and offer them the privilege of becoming a protectorate under our guidance." As the Viraxian delegation turned to leave, Zixtal made one final attempt. "Their planet's history is written in extinction events, Ambassador. Not of their species, but of everything that threatened them. They turned their planet's most fearsome predators into companions. They survived ice ages with stone tools. They've split atoms for both energy and destruction. And most importantly, they're still here, still evolving, still advancing." Kevorth paused at the chamber's threshold. "Then perhaps it's time someone showed them their place in the cosmic hierarchy." The doors sealed behind the delegation, leaving the council in contemplative silence. Finally, Ixel spoke. "Should we warn the humans?" "No," Zixtal replied, his luminescence now barely a flicker. "The Viraxians need to learn this lesson themselves. Besides, the humans already know they're coming." "How?" several counselors asked simultaneously. "Because humanity has been listening to our transmissions for decades. They just chose not to respond." Zixtal settled back in his throne. "They've been watching, learning, preparing. The Viraxians think they're initiating first contact, but the humans—" He paused, his next words carrying the weight of prophecy. "The humans have been waiting." In the vast darkness of space, a Viraxian battle fleet assembled, their crystalline ships gleaming with the light of distant stars. They prepared for what they believed would be a simple show of force, unaware that deep within Earth's Kuiper Belt, automated defense platforms that officially didn't exist were already tracking their movements. In a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Chen reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "They're really going to do it, aren't they?" she asked, though it wasn't really a question. Admiral James Rodriguez nodded, his holographic projection flickering slightly. "The Viraxian fleet will reach the edge of our solar system in approximately 72 hours. Should we reveal our presence in the outer system?" Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. "No. Let them come. Let them think they know what humanity is. It's time the galaxy learned why the Council fears us. As she spoke, throughout the solar system, humanity's true technological capabilities stirred from their carefully maintained dormancy. The game of appearing primitive was about to end, and the Viraxians were about to learn why the first rule of galactic civilization was simple: never provoke humanity. Fleet Commander Vextrol stood on the bridge of the Viraxian flagship Eternal Glory, watching as the holographic display showed their approach to the Sol system. The primitive radio signals from Earth had grown stronger, a cacophony of entertainment broadcasts, weather reports, and public communications that only reinforced his species' sense of superiority. "Status report," he commanded, his metallic scales shifting in anticipation. "All systems nominal, Commander," his second-in-command reported. "We've detected their primitive orbital satellites and space stations. No sign of advanced defensive systems. Their military vessels appear to be confined to their planet's surface." Vextrol's facial plates arranged themselves into an expression of smug satisfaction. "Begin the demonstration. Launch the containment field generators. Let's show them what real power looks like." Throughout the fleet, massive arrays of crystalline technology activated, preparing to envelope Earth's major cities in impenetrable force fields. It was a standard intimidation tactic that had worked on countless civilizations before. Demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority, then offer protection and guidance in exchange for submission. The first generator pods entered Earth's atmosphere, their crystalline surfaces refracting sunlight in brilliant displays. As they descended toward their targets, Vextrol waited for the panic, the desperate communications, the scrambling of primitive military forces. Instead, something very different happened. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Chen watched the approaching pods on her quantum display. "They really do think we're that primitive," she mused. "Admiral Rodriguez, shall we enlighten them?" "With pleasure, General." Rodriguez's hologram smiled, activating Guardian Protocol. Across Earth, hidden technological marvels awakened. What the Viraxians had dismissed as primitive satellites revealed themselves to be nodes in an intricate defense network. The simple space stations began emitting complex energy signatures that their sensors couldn't even classify. On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, alarms suddenly blared. "Commander," the sensor officer's voice carried notes of panic. "Multiple energy signatures appearing throughout the system. They're everywhere." Vextrol watched in disbelief as his display showed thousands of advanced weapons platforms materializing from what had appeared to be empty space. The humans hadn't just been hiding their technology. They had masked its very existence. "Impossible," he whispered. "Their energy readings, they're beyond anything in our database." The containment field generators never reached their targets. They simply stopped, hung motionless in the air above Earth's cities, held in place by forces the Viraxian sensors couldn't comprehend. A communication request flashed on their screens. Vextrol, still struggling to process what he was seeing, automatically accepted it. General Chen's hologram appeared before him, her expression perfectly composed. "Fleet Commander Vextrol, I presume. I'm General Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. I believe there's been a misunderstanding about humanity's technological status." Vextrol's scales rattled in agitation. How do you know my name? How are you broadcasting in perfect Viraxian?" "We've been listening to your communications for decades," Chen replied casually. "Your language wasn't particularly difficult to decode. Now about those containment field generators you just launched at our cities." With a gesture, she caused the generators to disassemble themselves in midair, their component particles reorganizing into complex patterns before simply vanishing. "Basic matter manipulation," she explained, noting Vextrol's shock. "We mastered that shortly after we split the atom. We just didn't see the need to broadcast it to the galaxy. You see, Commander, humanity learned long ago that appearing primitive can be advantageous." In the Galactic Council chambers, High Counselor Zixtal watched the unfolding scene through their own monitoring systems. And so it begins, he sighed. Should we intervene? Ixal asked. No, Zixtol replied. The humans are being gentle. They're giving the Viraxians a chance to learn without destruction. It's more than they usually offer those who threaten their world. Back in Earth's orbit, Vextrol struggled to maintain his composure. If you've had this technology all along, why hide it? Why maintain the facade of a primitive civilization? Chen's hologram smiled. Commander, when you're camping in the wilderness, do you immediately show the local wildlife all your equipment? Or do you observe first, learn about your environment, understand the potential threats and allies around you? You've been studying us. All of us, of course. And now, thanks to your rather aggressive introduction, we've decided it's time to join Galactic society properly. Her expression hardened slightly. Though I suggest you recall your fleet first. Those weapon systems you're detecting, they're not our advanced ones. They're our obsolete defense platforms we were planning to decommission next month. As the implications of that statement sank in, Vextrol realized that the first rule about humanity wasn't just a warning, it was a mercy, and his empire had just squandered it. The Viraxian High Command received Fleet Commander Vextrol's report with stunned silence. The humans' technological deception challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic civilization. But rather than inspiring caution, this revelation provoked fury. Supreme Commander Reichtar, his scales darkened with rage, made the decision that would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. If they've hidden their true nature from the galaxy, then they must have something to fear. Launch the assault fleet. We will strike at their closest extrasolar colony in the Proxima Centauri system. In Earth's Strategic Command, General Chen watched the Viraxian battle fleet's departure with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. They're really going to do this, aren't they? Admiral Rodriguez's hologram nodded. The Proxima colony is their target. They think it's a vulnerable settlement of a few thousand colonists. Should we tell them about the Jupiter-class defense platforms? Where would the fun be in that? Rodriguez smiled. Besides, this might be the lesson they need. The Viraxian assault fleet emerged from hyperspace near Proxima Centauri, their sensors immediately locking onto the modest human colony. Supreme Commander Reichtar stood aboard his command ship, the inevitable Victory, watching the seemingly defenseless settlement through high-resolution scanners. Begin the attack pattern, he ordered. Show these deceptive primates the price of. He never finished the sentence. The space around his fleet suddenly shifted, twisted, and seemed to fold in on itself. Dozens of massive structures simply appeared, as if they had always been there, hidden behind some cosmic curtain. By the eternal void, someone whispered on the bridge. Those aren't defense platforms. They're stars. Indeed, what the Viraxians were seeing defied their understanding of physics. Humanity hadn't built traditional space stations or weapon platforms. They had constructed artificial microstars, each one a carefully controlled fusion reaction suspended in quantum fields. This is Dr. Elizabeth Wong of the Proxima Defense Grid. A calm voice transmitted across all frequencies. Your ships have entered a restricted space. Please be advised that our stellar engineering projects are highly unstable when disturbed by unauthorized vessels. Reichtar, his pride overwhelming his judgment, responded with defiance. You expect us to believe you would risk destroying your own colony with these supposed stellar weapons? Oh, the colony. Wong's voice carried a note of amusement. Perhaps you should scan it again. When they did, the Viraxians discovered that what they had thought was a vulnerable settlement was actually a sophisticated holographic projection. The real Proxima colony existed in a series of massive underground complexes, protected by layers of technology that made Earth's defenses look primitive by comparison. You see, Wong continued, Proxima was our testing ground, where we perfect the technologies we're not quite ready to use back home. Now, would you like to see what a controlled stellar collapse looks like, or would you prefer to leave peacefully? Before Reichtar could respond, one of the artificial stars pulsed. A beam of concentrated plasma, hotter than the surface of Earth's sun, lanced through space. It missed the Viraxian fleet by several kilometers, but the message was clear. That was 0.1% power, Wong explained cheerfully. Shall I demonstrate 1%? The Viraxian fleet retreated so quickly they nearly crashed into each other entering hyperspace. As they fled, they received one final transmission from the human colony. Oh, and Supreme Commander, the next time you plan a surprise attack, you might want to use a communication system we haven't already decoded. We knew you were coming before you left your homeworld. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, High Counselor Zixtal watched the recordings of the encounter with something approaching satisfaction. The humans showed remarkable restraint, Ixal observed. Did they? Zixtal mused. Or did they just demonstrate their power in the most terrifying way possible? Think about it. They didn't just defeat the Viraxians. They showed them that humanity's test site, their experimental colony, could have destroyed an entire battle fleet without effort. Your Empire's attack, he nodded to Rektar, showed us that the galaxy is ready for change, even if some had to learn the hard way. And those who refuse, someone asked, will be left to find their own path, Chen assured them. We're gardeners, not conquerors. Some seeds sprout early, others late. All we offer is the choice. One by one, the council members signaled their acceptance. Even Rektar, his military pride giving way to understanding, bowed in agreement. As the session concluded, Zixtal approached the human projections. You planned this, he accused, though there was admiration in his tone. Everything from the Viraxian attack to this very meeting. Not exactly, Chen smiled. We simply understood the probable paths of evolution and chose the one with the least suffering. Speaking of which, she turned to Rektar and Lixar. Your species stands at a crossroads. Your military strength and your scientific insight, combined with your recent humbling, make you perfect candidates for the first phase of cooperation. What would that entail? Lixar asked eagerly. We start with the fundamental question, Dr. Wong grinned. The same question humanity faced eons ago. What do you want to become? As the council chamber buzzed with excitement and apprehension, Admiral Rodriguez's projection turned to General Chen. Think they'll survive the transformation? Chen watched the assembled species with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall, that had guided humanity through countless metamorphoses. They'll adapt, she said. They all do, eventually. After all, evolution finds a way. They finished together, their forms briefly shifting through possibilities that the universe was only beginning to dream of. In the deep spaces between stars, humanity's quantum networks pulsed with new connections, new possibilities, new paths of evolution. The game of hiding was over. The age of transformation had begun. And somewhere in the cosmic dance of probability and potential, reality itself held its breath, waiting to see what its most ambitious children would become next. We have to stop the military, she realized. Any further aggression won't defeat them. It will only make them stronger, Zixtal finished. Yes, but more importantly, it will convince them that our level of civilization isn't ready for what they've become. And then, Scholar Lixar, they won't just defend themselves. They'll decide to accelerate our evolution too. Like the Marax, Lixar whispered, understanding finally dawning. They didn't destroy them. They uplifted them. Forcibly. Precisely. The question isn't whether humanity will reshape the galaxy. It's whether we're wise enough to let them do it gradually, on their terms, or foolish enough to force their hand. In her office on Earth, General Chen reviewed the Viraxian scholar's research activity with interest. It seems someone finally figured it out, she remarked to Rodriguez. Should we be concerned? Chen smiled. On the contrary, understanding is the first step toward acceptance. And acceptance is the first step toward evolution, Rodriguez finished. Should I activate the Ascension Protocol? Not yet. Let's give them time to process what they've learned. After all, Chen's eyes gleamed with something ancient and knowing. Evolution works best when it's not rushed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council hadn't been called by the Council itself, but by the Viraxian Empire, a humbling first in their history. Supreme Commander Rektar and Scholar Lixar stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, their scales reflecting the gravity of the moment. "We were wrong," Rektar began, each word clearly costing him considerable pride. "Our actions nearly triggered a catastrophe beyond our comprehension." High Counselor Zixtal leaned forward, his bioluminescence pulsing with interest. "You've reviewed Scholar Lixar's findings." "Yes," Rektar's scales rippled with discomfort. "The humans, they're not just another species. They're a force of nature that gained sentience." Lixar stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "Our latest analysis suggests that humanity's technological advancement isn't just rapid, it's accelerating exponentially. But more importantly, it's not just their technology that's evolving." The display showed a real-time feed from Earth, cities that seemed to breathe, buildings that grew and adapted like living organisms, energy patterns that danced between quantum states as naturally as waves on an ocean. "They're approaching a threshold," Lixar continued. "Each challenge, each interaction with other species, catalyzes further change. The very act of watching them is changing them. And in turn, they're changing us." A new presence materialized in the chamber, a quantum projection of General Chen, accompanied by Admiral Rodriguez and Dr. Wang. The council chambers fell silent. "We apologize for the intrusion," Chen began, "but we felt this conversation should include all parties." "You've been monitoring our session?" a council member asked. "We've been monitoring everything," Rodriguez replied simply. "It's what we do. It's what we've always done. We observe, we learn, we adapt, we evolve." "And now," Dr. Wang added, "we believe it's time for the galaxy to evolve with us." The chamber erupted in a mixture of fear and fascination. Zixtal raised his appendages for silence. "You're proposing open contact then?" he asked. "Full integration with galactic society?" "We're proposing partnership," Chen corrected. "Humanity has reached a point where hiding our true nature no longer serves any purpose. We've watched long enough to know which civilizations are ready for what we've become. And those who aren't ready?" Rektar asked, his voice carrying an edge of fear. "Will be given time to develop at their own pace," Rodriguez assured him. "Forced evolution is messy. We learned that from our mistakes with the Mirax. Better to guide than to push." Dr. Wang's projection gestured, and the chamber filled with incredible visions. Future technologies, new forms of consciousness, evolutionary paths that bent the very fabric of reality. "This is what we offer," she explained. "Not dominance, but transformation. Not conquest, but transcendence. The question isn't whether the galaxy will evolve. It's whether we do it together or separately." Lixar's scales shimmered with excitement. "The extinction events in Earth's history, you weren't just surviving them, were you? You were creating them, reshaping your world, your species, reality itself. We call it directed evolution." Chen nodded. "Our consciousness shapes reality, and reality shapes our consciousness. It's a dance we've been performing since we first looked up at the stars and decided to reach them." High Counselor Zixtal rose from his throne. "And now you wish to teach this dance to others?" "To those who are willing to learn," Rodriguez confirmed. "You think this was planned? That they wanted the Viraxians to attack Proxima?" "Of course. The humans didn't just predict this confrontation. They choreographed it. Now every species in the galaxy knows that humanity's most distant colony could defeat one of the strongest military forces in known space. Imagine what their homeworld must be capable of." In her office beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Chen reviewed the after-action report with satisfaction. "Dr. Wang might have enjoyed that demonstration a bit too much," she commented. "Can you blame her?" Rodriguez replied. "She's been waiting 3 years to show off those stellar engineering projects to someone. Chen's expression grew serious. Do you think the Viraxians have learned their lesson? If they haven't, we still have the Epsilon Protocol. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I'd hate to have to explain to the Council why we had to reorganize the local space-time geometry. The paperwork would be hell. Deep within the Viraxian archive of Xenological Studies, Scholar Lixar worked through the night cycle, her scales dulled from exhaustion. The humiliation at Proxima had shaken the Empire to its core, but while military leaders plotted revenge, she sought understanding. Computer, cross-reference all historical encounters with human civilization prior to official galactic contact, she commanded, her claws dancing across holographic interfaces. Warning, the AI responded. Accessing restricted Council records. Security clearance required. Lixar input her emergency research authorization, granted in the wake of the Proxima incident. The archives opened before her, and what she found made her scales pale. The first entry was from 3 centuries ago. Drachnid Research Vessel Truth Seeker. Final transmission. They weren't primitive. The nuclear weapons were a ruse. They're quantum manipulation technology. They don't just split atoms, they rewrite them. The Empire has fallen. Let this be a warning. Another record, 2 centuries older. Marak's collective emergency broadcast. The humans did not defeat us. They changed us. Their consciousness-altering fields. They made us see ourselves as they see us. We cannot continue as we were. But it was the oldest record that made Lixar's breath catch. A geological survey from Earth itself, conducted secretly by the Council eons ago. Planet shows evidence of multiple extinction-level events, yet dominant species remains. Unprecedented adaptation rate. Hypothesis. These aren't survivors of disasters. They're the cause. Each extinction correlates with a threat to their development. Species appears to instinctively reshape their environment, including elimination of competitors, to ensure survival. By the void, Lixar whispered. They're not just advanced. They're evolutionary architects. Her research was interrupted by an urgent communication from the High Council. On her screen appeared High Counselor Zixtal himself. I see you found our old records, he said without preamble. Why? Why wasn't this information shared? Lixar demanded. The military wouldn't have. Would they have believed it? Zixtal interrupted. Your people were convinced humans were primitive. Would tales of their true nature have changed that perception, or would they have been dismissed as myths? Lixar's scales shifted in agitation. But these records, they suggest humans have been manipulating their own evolution, their own planet's development, for millions of years. Not manipulating, Zixtal corrected. Directing. Every major transition in Earth's history correlates with human advancement. The Ice Ages taught them to master fire and build shelters. Predators taught them to craft weapons and work in groups. Natural disasters taught them to predict and control their environment. But that would mean their technology isn't just advanced, Zixtal finished. It's an extension of their natural development. They didn't just discover quantum mechanics, they evolved to perceive it. They don't just use tools, they reshape reality to create the tools they need. Lixar's research interface flashed with new data, real-time updates from Earth. Her scales bristled in shock as she processed the information. They're transforming, she gasped. The technology they revealed, their defenses, they're not weapons at all, are they? They're evolutionary catalysts. Now you understand, Zixtal nodded. The humans aren't just defending themselves. Every challenge, every threat, every encounter pushes them to evolve further. Your Empire's attack didn't weaken them. It accelerated their development. On her screens, Lixar watched as new data poured in from Earth. Energy signatures unlike anything ever recorded. Matter transformation on a scale that defied physics. Patterns of advancement that seemed to ripple through their entire species simultaneously.